We've sold over 100,000 Rosa Sky cocktails.
Success is riddled with failures.
You guys are obviously titans in business and titans in hospitality.
I didn't know who Tim was, the truth. And then he comes right over and he knew exactly who I was.
Compliments to you, because if there was a disruptor in the nightlife industry, it was the Wharf. I remember when the Wharf came in. I mean, what you did was genius.
We're in Giselle. This place is beautiful. Talk to me about Giselle. How'd you end up here?
We needed this concept to be a party, to be a serious restaurant, and to be sexy. And that's a tough thing to pull off.
Yeah, it's not easy. I had a dream. I heard a voice. It was a Spanish dancer that in my mind, she was dancing for a guy, and she whispered into his ear, "Papi, take me to Giselle tomorrow night."
We've all had failures, okay? There is no success without failures. But when you open a restaurant or a bar or club and it's not going well, that is a living hell, because
What's the biggest loss and or hit you've ever taken?
I was super excited about it, and it was like, and I came up with these ideas and this and that, and then it disaster.
the biggest failure and the one that taught me the biggest lesson, I guess I would say,
Welcome back to a special edition of Industry Talks Hospitality Podcast. I'm your host, Emi Guerra. Today, I have two very special guests, two dear friends of mine, Alan Roth and Tim Petrillo. Guys, thank you so much for being here with me.
Thank you for having us.
thank
So
you.
fun.
Actually, thank you for having me. This place is beautiful. We're at Giselle, their spot here in downtown Miami. It's absolutely insane. If you haven't been, you have to definitely check it out. We'll talk a little bit about that later. I'm just going to dig right into this. I know you guys individually, and somehow, some way, you ended up together producing some amazing venues. Alan, I know you from Miami Beach back in 1999, 98 to the Magic Party,
Yes.
Magic
The
Garden
Magic Garden.
at the Albion Hotel.
Super fun. Yep.
And Tim, obviously, when we opened up Fort Lauderdale, the Wharf in Fort Lauderdale, the entire community is like, you got to meet Tim. You got to meet Tim. He's the guy in Fort Lauderdale. And you absolutely are, and you were, and you still are, and you welcomed us with open arms. So I definitely got to say thank you.
No, we were so excited to have you up there. So
It was definitely fun. We'll dig into that. How'd you guys? I'm going to ask you how you ended up together, but you guys are obviously titans in business and titans in hospitality. How'd you get into the hospitality business? What was your first gig?
My first gig?
Yeah.
So I always look at my first real gig. I see it as the first day the News Cafe opened. I was 13 years old, and my uncle was one of the investors. He actually put up some of the money for his ex-wife to give her something to do to get her out of off his back, and I was a cashier there.
No way.
Yeah.
The one on Ocean Drive and
Yeah.
like 8th, was it?
Yeah. Ocean Drive at the
the
corner
News
of 8th.
Cafe.
The News Cafe.
the
The first day it opened, I can still remember taking tables out of the boxes and helping Mark Soika. And then there was his partner, this other guy, Jeffrey, who had the ice cream shop, which is where the bar is. But that was what I consider my first job in hospitality. And I don't even know, I was 13 years old. I don't even know why I was actually working. It just was like, it seemed like a fun, cool thing to do. I don't know.
Is that the job that sucked you in? Because there's always that one moment that like drives you into hospitality.
It definitely planted the seed for sure. I mean, I think the job that really sort of changed my life and my perspective on so many things was the first day the Delano opened.
The Delano.
Yeah.
Wow, that place was amazing.
It was amazing. Yeah, it was magic, and I was there. I got hired. I was one of the first hires.
What did you do?
I was a server in the Blue Door Hotel.
Nice.
The first table, I love this story, but the first table that came in at the Blue Door that we served as a true table was Ian. Ian Schrager and his wife Rita. It was their hotel. So it was Ian, his wife Rita, Madonna, because she was a partner in the restaurant. Then at the time, she was dating Carlos, the dancer, whoever that was, but that was her boyfriend at the time. And then Brian McNally, who was the owner of the restaurant with Ian, Keith McNally's older brother, from Pastis, etc., Balthazar. But then what was crazy is, and I didn't know her at the time, then there was a beautiful young lady there by the name of Ingrid Caceres.
Oh, wow.
And Ingrid was at that table. And, there were rumors about Ingrid. I learned quickly from that moment on about her being Madonna's girlfriend, and later to learn that they were on and off for so many years, you know. And if you ever see Madonna's book, like, you know, Ingrid's like one of the muse of that book. Like that was it was. But anyway, so and then years later, Ingrid became my partner with Tommy and I when Chris took a break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thai entertainment.
Yeah.
Thai Entertainment.
Wow,
yeah.
you just took me down memory lane because I was a fan. I'm still a fan. Now, Tim, your hospitality journey is absolutely incredible from what I know. But what I don't know is how'd you get in? Like, what was your defining like?
So like most people in this industry, I started out as a busboy. You know, I was my family had moved away from my school where it was, and I was bored as hell in the summertime. So I was in a walking distance to a restaurant called Banana Boat in Boynton Beach, and it's still there. And I walked over the bridge, walked in, and said, "Hey, do you have any work?" And you know, back then, you know, the industry was chaotic, right? So the guy's like, "Can you bus tables?" Yeah. So he throws me a shirt, and you asked about the moment that happened. Well, the energy of running around and all that stuff, and at the end of the night, all these people kept on coming up with cash and saying, "Give me cash. Give me cash." I'm like, "What is going on here?" You know, because I'd never been in a tipped environment or anything like that. So I got like $100 in my pocket. I'm 12 years old, and I walk up to the bar.
12?
Yeah, I was like 12 and a half. They don't back then. They didn't even ask me my age.
nobody
No,
cared
no, they
about
didn't.
age back then.
No,
I didn't
they
even fill
didn't.
out any paperwork. They like threw me a shirt and an apron and said, "Go bust tables." So I walk up to the bartender at the end of the night, and he was like, I go, "Who do I give this money to?" And he goes, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Everyone's giving me money. This is," so he's like, "That's yours. That's what you made tonight." I'm like, "This is what I made. It's incredible." So I went home. I'm like, "Dad, I got the best job. I think I need to open a bank account." He's like, "What are you talking about, bank?" He's like, "Just pump the brakes here,
Put
you
it
know."
in your box.
So he gives me a shoebox, and about 3 weeks later, this thing's overflowing with cash because I'm not changing in the ones. And so he's like, "Are you selling drugs? What's this new job?" That kind of thing. Yeah. So that was my hook, and I've been in it ever since. You know, that kind of.
Is that what sucked you in?
Yeah, that's what, you know, the energy of that, the vibe, that kind of sucks you in. I mean, the people connections keep you through the chaos at the restaurant business, and the energy helps get you through, right?
Nice. I knowing more as I know about you guys, I believe there's definitely some highlights or some things that experiences that you've had along the way that have probably tailored your mantra, the way you've shaped your business and life. Tim, you worked for many years at Houston's,
Yes.
right? Now,
Yep.
for me, the way I realize or what I know about Houston's is they're the most incredible organization when it comes to training, discipline, and just overall work. Like we hire their corporate trainers to train our teams whenever possible. But can you like walk us through what it was like working for an organization like that, or how you even ended up there?
Right. So I'll give you. It's actually a pretty funny story. So how I ended up there. First off, I was working as the bar manager at Mark's Place in North Miami. At the time, it was James Beard. He was like one of the top, you know, the Mango crew. Norman Van Aken, Mark Militello, and Alan Susser were like the top 3 chefs and I was working as the bar manager for Mark's. Everybody, my brother was in the industry. Everybody's telling me you got to go work for Houston's. If you're gonna graduate, that's the company because they have such a great foundation. They're incredibly committed to excellence. Their standards and structures like nothing else in the business. So I applied. Well, and you know the recruiters come into FIU and because I went to FIU and they interview the candidates. Well, I didn't get the interview, so I go back to Mark and he's like, "No, you didn't get it. Well, maybe we'll introduce you. We'll figure another way." So I'm bartending that night, and a guy's sitting at the bar, and there's a group of about 10 people, and since this guy's alone, I started just entertaining, talking to him, and he knew a lot about the restaurant business, and my brother was in Atlanta working for a different restaurant company. He knew their owners. And I'm like, "God, you really know a lot about the restaurant business." You know, he's like, "Yeah, I actually own a couple restaurants." I go, "Oh, what do you own?" He goes, "Well, I actually own Houston's." So George Beal happened to be sitting at my bar, and I'm like, you know, I was floored. So I'm engaging with him. He goes to his table. I run back to Mark. I said, "The owner of Houston's is here." They were actually down looking at the site for North Miami Aventura.
Oh, wow.
They were purchasing that, and they did the development of that site. So they did the P.F. Chang's, they did the Morton's, and they did the Hillstone there. So he was down there. Mark goes out to the table and said, "Hey, you missed the opportunity to hire this guy." He goes, well, "I didn't even know we were hiring the guy that I was talking to." So he walks over to me, said, "Give me your number. I'm going to have my recruiters call you." So that night, the director of human resources, Jeff Bell, comes down, calls me, and he flies in the next day to interview me, and I got the job. That's how.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
That was.
Isn't that crazy?
It just kind of.
So it all kind of came
Fast,
together.
too, huh?
That's been the story of my life. The way Alan and I met, things, I'd rather be lucky than smart, right? And
You'd rather be lucky than smart.
Yeah, and I've been very lucky because again, it's like you can work really hard. I think the harder you work, the more luck you find, right? So, and I think those types of things come together, and that's like when we talk about how Alan and I met. That's a proven point of like just letting things come together.
Man,
I
that's
think it's all about going out.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
like, no,
Yeah.
I'm not even joking.
it's
like,
networking for sure.
It's networking. It's
Yep.
going out. I mean, I was just in New York. It's like a crazy thing. I was just in New York. Chef and I were just in New York. We're walking down the street. I'm like, come on, let's go down Broadway. I run into a guy who I haven't seen in about 10 years at least, maybe 15, who was one of the biggest music managers that exist. And immediately he's like, I haven't seen you in so long. What are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Fast forward, he goes, you got to meet this person. And he's like some guy who's worth like $500 million, but he loves the hospitality business. He set us up on text, and we're going to end up meeting next week. Just like, I mean, who knows if anything will happen, but
it's
being out, going out and
we
doing
met
things.
being out.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yep.
That was why
the
I'm telling
most
the story.
the most valuable asset you have is your Rolodex.
Yep.
Yeah.
Really,
That's
right? And your relationships.
Yeah.
I would assume,
True.
right?
For sure.
And just to switch it up a little bit, one of the biggest projects that I remember you had, and in your career, just me again as a patron, as a fan, was Rumi. That place was hot
It was
for
amazing.
a long time.
It was a good one. It was fun.
Was that one of your first?
25 years old, and I opened this. And at the time, the budget was going to be $1 million, and then like we kept creeping up. And we had one investor from Mexico who owned. And back then, remember, Mexico was Cancun. He had Daddy-O's.
Okay,
like
wow.
a huge
Yeah.
nightclub with all these other little places. He had like 20 places, but everything back then was cash. So he's like, "How much do you need?" I was like, "Let's do him." And I thought I was a big shot, $1 million. And we ended up spending $1.5 million, And
The place looked
it was
beautiful.
incredible. Yeah.
Did you ever make it over to Rumi?
Yeah, sure did. Yeah, that was the spot back then, of course.
It
Yeah.
had a good
Yeah.
run. It was
It-
fun.
Unfortunately, I didn't know Alan at the time. I would have had a much better time if that happened.
I got rejected at the
we
door
were just
once.
talking about that.
I got rejected at the door once. I showed up in a sarong after being at Nikki Beach all day, and
didn't let
like,
you in, huh?
They didn't let me in. Freddie didn't let me in. God rest his soul. Freddie was at the door, and he's like, "Yeah, I can't let you in a sarong." I'm like, they had standards, man. Now, if you reject somebody at the door, you're called a racist.
Actually,
You
a
know,
sarong
so-
would work these days.
Sarong will work. these
A sarong
days.
will work these days.
Painted toenails
Yeah.
and a sarong.
I mean, you guys have such storied past. We could talk about that forever. But how'd you end up getting together? When I saw this, I kind of saw you guys date a little bit
Yeah, we
before
did.
because you came to one of my places once, like, "Hey, I'm gonna meet Tim," and I'm like, "I'm seeing these guys hanging out together. They're gonna do something."
Well, I'll tell the story because, I mean, feel free to chime in, of course. But for me, this goes to show the kind of person that Tim is in a way. And there's what I love about Tim is that partnerships are very complicated, and I've had a couple of them. And Tim is like, there's no ego. We all have a little ego, but we've been surrounded by so many people with like the craziest of egos, especially in Miami Beach, South Beach, Miami. And I walked into this. It was the opening of a hotel, random hotel. It was the opening of a hotel, and I run into Susan Penrod, who I've known for years, and she's like, "Oh, I'm here with Tim Petrillo," and I'm like, "I'm sorry, I don't." Or she goes, "I'm here with Tim," and I was like, "Tim who?" She's like, "Tim Petrillo," and I didn't know who Tim was, the truth. And then he comes right over, and he knew exactly who I was. And I tell that story because this guy's got 20 times, 30 times more than anything I've ever had. He's got 10 restaurants. He owns so much property up there. Sorry, I don't know what you want to tell or not tell, but really at the end of the day.
Yeah, he's got it
and
going on.
And I've got a few things. I was a promoter. I own some houses. It's like, so the ego and like the knowledge of understanding who was doing what in what areas, for me, I had to take a step back from that. And I'm like, I want to know who this guy is. And we started to talk, and we started to become friends. And it was that moment going out and being social, and it was that moment where we met and we started talking. You know,
And it was great timing too, because so the prelude to Alan's story is I had signed a deal down here with the Finvar group to do the where Rosa Sky is, okay? And again, that project.
You love rooftops.
Yes, yeah, we should have been called instead of restaurant people, the rooftop people. So Bobby and I signed that deal, and he was developing a hotel. And again, hotels take 2.5 years, so I had some time to figure out what the concept was, and I recognized how tough the Miami market is, how finical the Miami market is. Listen, I knew we could do the food and beverage, but I didn't have the personality or the connection down here to curate the crowd, to make it sure it's the right crowd, the whole 9 yards. And which is, in Miami, that is crucially important, as you both know. So I was getting a little nervous, not knowing, and I asked Susan, because she was involved with Nikki Beaches and things like that, for her input. And Alan's name was always coming up. And I was meeting with these other peoples that were names were coming up. And you could just tell that they would not fit into the culture that we have. You know, it was more centered around them. You know, it was, as Alan said, very egotistical. We're not that kind of group. You know, everyone's got egos, but it's what's best for what we're doing, right? And that's kind of what approach we lead in. And if your idea is not as good as the next idea, well, we move on until right, that kind of thing. So it just happened that we happened to be at the same party. Susan's like, Alan's here, because Alan went on a sabbatical and was traveling all over the world and blah blah blah. So we just never were able to connect. We connected at that event.
You did do a nomad trip.
Yeah,
over
oh,
here.
yeah,
You
yeah.
did
I
a few of
many,
those.
many,
You've done a few of those, but we'll talk
yeah,
about
a lot of that. A lot of soul searching.
So we hit it off, and then and the irony is, now I had to tell Bobby that I'm bringing somebody else into this group that is going to be helping us lead this charge, and I didn't know. You never know what, after it's deal signed, when you want to change the deal, how they're going to react. Well, I didn't know that Bobby and Alan were like dear friends from being kids.
Dated my sister 30 years ago.
Oh my God.
So
It's great though. It's a great story.
So it's a great story. So I told him we're gonna have lunch, and I'm gonna bring in somebody that and Alan already told me that they're been dear friends, and it's not gonna be an issue. So I didn't tell Bobby who it was, and we kind of just walked into we had lunch at Motec actually in Aventura, and Bobby was like, "You got to be kidding me," you know. So it was great from the onset. So, and it's been, listen, every partnership has its ups and downs, but we're getting to know each other and kind of fitting in. It's been a pleasure.
Well, it seems like a match made in heaven. You just mentioned Rosa Sky, so that was your first project together.
Yeah.
Talk to me about Rosa Sky. It's everywhere. It's been rocking now for how many years?
3.5 years. Yeah.
Alan, why don't you? I'll give my short version. So we had this rooftop. We didn't really have a kind of a concept yet, right? And to Alan's credit, you know, we talked about it. We went up there. We saw some of the views, what it was going to be like. There is a killer building that is all glazing in front of us, so it creates this mirror image. And when the sun sets, because it sets to the west and we faced east, it gives this just magical glow off of this building. And Alan picked that up immediately, and I'll let you go into it.
So we went up, and it was still under construction, actually. We had to do the side elevators, which I don't love those.
You know, the construction elevators on the
those are
side?
the
No.
But we go up there, and we're up there. There's not even a roof up there yet. There's no bar built. It's literally just a flat concrete surface. And we happened to be up there at the time when the sun was sort of, you know, just starting to go down a little bit. And there, the sky and off of the buildings, it had different shades of color. I mean, it happened to be a beautiful night.
Yeah.
That's the reality. It was a really beautiful moment. And we, when I saw it, I guess it was sort of his first time up there, like finally built. And so we went up there, and we left there, and we're like, all right, let's figure this out. Like, I'm in, you know. And I that night, I think, I mean, I don't even think it lasted much longer, but that night I was like, I got to figure this out. And this is what happens in my brain, at least. I start thinking, and like, what am I going to do? Like, what's this? And I just, like, you know, I smoke a little bit of a joint, and I have some wine or tequila, and like, I get lost in like this moment. and that's what happened. And I started playing around with names and ideas and words, and Rosa Sky, like, the AC Hotel was a brand that I had never heard of at the time. You know, go back 4 years ago. You know, and it was started in Spain. So I thought of Spanish, I thought of Miami, and I thought of like the sky, and then, you know, what is Miami? And it's a mix of Spanish and English. So, you know, I started putting words together, and then it became this idea of like, you know, basically the target was for a female, that two girls could come out and like be together and have a bottle of wine and relax and, you know, and feel good and it not be too expensive.
And it was all about them too.
Yeah, it was
From
all about, like,
the
that was the
DJs
audience.
to the
Right.
flowers.
We
to
started off, we
everything.
started off, you know, the first 2 years of the place, we did only female DJs.
Yeah, I remember that.
You know, like, we didn't talk about it too much because I never wanted us to be like pigeonholed into like not being able to have a dude, you know. So, you know, and that's kind of how it came, the design, the concept, and everything.
And you
know,
smashed it.
We smashed it, yeah. But again,
Knock on wood.
it's such
Yeah,
a
yeah.
team. Yeah, knock on wood is right. It's such a team effort. Like, you know, we've sold over 100,000. Maybe it's now it could be up to 125. Over 100,000 Rosa Sky cocktails. Like, literally, it's a martini with the juice and a shaved rose ice cube.
Yep.
I mean, everything just worked, you know. And like the guy who handles our beverage program, Tony, he came up with that. You know,
Yes.
like things like
It's
that.
a team effort.
It's
It
a
is.
team
Sure,
effort.
100%.
It was one of those deals where you know how certain things just fall into place continuously. Rosa Sky was that. You know, like this ice thing that we're talking about. This guy I know bought this ice carving business. He had no idea what to do with it. And he came to me, he said, would you use any ice like this? I said, well, yeah, but how customized can we do it? And then we started playing with ideas, and I said, can you do a rose? And he worked on it, and he said, yeah, here, this is the rose. And then
Is it like a mold?
yeah, and the irony is, if we went to any other ice company like that we weren't a customer in, or they wouldn't have taken the time to figure it out. The guy was trying to figure out his business, therefore he was willing to, you know, have us beta test a bunch of stuff, so that just worked, right? Those types of things, continuous ideas like that with how things fell into place with Rosa.
Those moments where everything just kind of clicks, you feel it inside.
Yeah, and then there's the opposite when it doesn't. You
Yeah.
know, and it's like it's constant.
Well, I
swimming
was
upstream. you
Yeah,
know?
you know, I one of the things that I always like to ask our guests is, it's not always an up and down. It's not straight up. The path to success is never straight up. What's the biggest loss and or hit you've ever taken?
For me, you know, it's not all about money, but for me, there was a moment where Tommy and I started working together. Tommy Pooch and I.
I love Tommy.
Of
Yeah.
course. And this was my idea. I had this idea that we had the beach club at the Raleigh with Andre, you know, with Soiree, etc. And we wanted to do more together. And I had this idea to open I wanted to do like wraps, sandwich wraps. And at the time in Miami Beach, there wasn't Miami, that didn't really exist yet. So I came up with this I had a friend of ours, Marcus, do a wrap design. And we had a little guy. We even made so we did this thing. We had one investor. It wasn't even a lot of money. I think it was like total of 150 or 125. We, you know, and ended up, we opened, and then 3 days later, they shut the street down.
Oh.
Literally,
Oh,
you couldn't
no.
drive on our street 3 days later. And,
What
you
street was it
know,
on?
it was a disaster. It was exactly on the same block as where Bed was.
Oh, wow, okay, yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
8th
yeah,
or
yeah.
something, 7th,
9th,
8th, 9th, whatever it was.
929, right?
Washington. But for me, that was the biggest hit for me. And just because mentally I was like, I put a lot into this moment, and you know, and I was like, I was super excited about it, and it was like, and I came up with these ideas and this and that, and then it
Catastrophic.
disaster.
How'd you power through? What was the rebound? What was the?
I just kept going. I mean, there's you know, from that specifically, I didn't do another sandwich place.
Food is so tough.
Yeah, that's
Food is complicated.
Food is tough. I mean, food is
complicated.
tough. It's a lot easier to sell drinks than
Oh
it is
my
food.
God.
And for you, Tim, you have many places and many successes, but there's got to be one
oh
that
yeah.
like
There's
got to be a couple or
There's
one.
a lot. Yeah. Success is riddled with failures, right? So I would say for you guys are nightlife guys. I'm more a food guy, right? I came out of restaurant side of business, so you know. I think the biggest failure and the one that taught me the biggest lesson, I guess I would say, you can't believe the press, both good and bad, because you're not as good as they say you are, and you're not as bad as they say you are. And when you start believing you're as good as they say you are, that's when you get in trouble, okay? And we went on a run where we were opening spots, and we were having just home run after home run after home run. So we wanted to do this concept, a meatball concept, okay? And we put it on Las Olas, and we called it Fork and Balls, which was a bold statement, especially for Fort Lauderdale. and I thought it would be a good idea to try to sell meatballs to people in 95-degree heat through the summers and things like that. So we learned very quickly that wasn't a good idea, and we opened it. It was a big thud. But again, I think that made me correct that, hey, you're not as good as you are, okay? You really need to do diligence on the concept, the location, and that really taught me real estate is paramount. I'd rather be the worst operator in the best real estate than the best operator in the worst real estate, because real estate will win every time, in my mind.
Wow. And how'd you powered through?
Well, the good news is we bought that real estate.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So we could preserve some of our yeah, we could preserve some of
That
our,
always helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we could preserve some of our investment, and then we released it. Now it's a stabilized real estate investment.
Yeah. Well, that's great.
One of the things that Tim, and the team have done really well. Again, I'm the newcomer in the group. Only the last 4 years, but is that he owns, as I said earlier, a ton of property. So it's like, we just bought something together, and I'm super excited to be right on Las Olas.
Yeah, we bought at the Andari there. We have the ground floor. We'll do a restaurant there.
So now,
Nice.
and go look. Fast forward 3 years from now, maybe we do a restaurant, or maybe we don't. But
Yeah.
the option's there, and if we do it, at least we own the dirt.
Right.
So kind of.
Yeah,
kind of a
we
fun-
try to own a lot of the real estate. Like, we're opening a new concept on Las Olas. We bought that real estate 12 years ago, waiting for the lease. We tried to buy the business, but the lease finally ended, and now we're putting a spot there at the old Piazza.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
That's awesome. Well, you guys obviously have been doing this for a long time and have a lot of knowledge. And aside from having your own places, you're also great customers and or guests to other businesses. But I'm sure there's some pet peeves that either other businesses or even your own team do. Is there any pet peeves in the hospitality business that just gives you that irk and you wish, man, I wish the hospitality business just did without this?
yeah. Oh yeah.
Well,
I have one.
I'll tell you, I can't speak for Fort Lauderdale, but sort of growing up in South Beach, nightlife, hospitality, it felt like it was a very sort of tight cult like group. At that time, like, I loved going to, Chris and Ingrid's place and supporting them, or I loved, whoever it was, any of the places. And for me, my biggest pet peeve is it's industry talk in a way. So that's why my head is here. But like, I wish the people that even for years when I wasn't working, I was still going to people's places and supporting them just to like support them. And, I didn't want anything for free. I was happy to pay, And so I think my biggest pet peeve is like some of the people that I would have anticipated to come and support or just be here one time haven't. And some of them, and I don't want to call out too many people, but like they haven't come, and it's a little bit shocking for me. It's like, because I supported them. I mean, it's like I wanted to go to Ball and Chain, and sorry, did I just say Zach? But like things like that, like people I've known for a long time. You can edit that part if you want.
No.
No, I'm just kidding. But like, when we opened, Chris came with like a group, and Nicola was here with a group, and like, some of that stuff,
No.
whatever.
I'm feeling a little guilty. I was supposed to go to Rosa Sky at least 100 times, and I was having kids at the time.
It's all good.
I was
It's all
having
good.
kids
It's
at the
all
time.
good.
It was a little
It's all
difficult.
good.
I tried to go the other day, and again, it didn't work out. I'm a terrible human
Yeah.
being. Yeah, that was a jab.
Yeah, it was a
That
jab.
was a big
It
jab.
sounded directed right at
Oh
you.
my God, that was terrible.
I've called you out already. on
No,
it
you
many
have.
times, you know.
I feel it.
There's a list, by the way, but yeah, it
There's a
doesn't
list.
matter.
I'm on there though.
There's a list. But
I'm
yeah.
on there.
But to be fair, Amy goes to the restaurants up in Fort Lauderdale all the time when he's up there. So
Yeah, I go to his places a lot.
Yeah.
I have.
That's good.
I have. You definitely have a pet peeve.
yeah, oh
I'm
yeah.
sure.
You know, I think well, of course, everyone's got pet peeves. I think what I'm seeing in the hospitality business is, it's starting to happen in Miami. It's happening in Miami, and it's migrating north to Lauderdale. Is this industry is becoming less hospitable, and in general, and I think it's very dangerous. What I mean by that is, you sit down at dinner and you're told that you only have this amount of time to eat, and then you're asked to leave, right? And a lot of that is driven by a lot of factors, both guest-driven and operation-driven. People really don't understand that we have a very finite time to make money in our industry, so we have to capitalize that. So being 45 minutes late for a table is not fair to the restaurant, but at the same time, the guest traffic, everything happens. So when you show up fighting Miami traffic and you're 30 minutes late for your reservation, and then you're told, okay, you only have an hour left to dine, that doesn't feel great as a guest, okay? And we're starting to see that more and more, and we do it ourselves. We're guilty of this as well because of that knife that you're trying to.
But what are you supposed
catch.
to do at that point, right?
Exactly.
Like I don't understand.
Right. So there has to be some sort of, and then what happens is with the onset of social media, there's like this push and pull with the guest of the line you want to walk and not cross, right? And it's tough. So I feel that hospitality in general is becoming less hospitable because of these challenges that we face. And I don't know how to correct it. I don't know if there's an answer, but when you see a guest walk around the room taking pictures and we're holding the food at the counter, and then they put the food down in front of the guest and there's a 20-minute video made, and then it's like, oh, I'm sorry, this is cold, I can't eat this. That doesn't feel good to the chef, to the server, to every. So there's that push and pull that's happening that I don't know.
It's complicated.
It is complicated. I don't know how.
Especially with food, man. I'm just going back to the food. It's so hard.
It is. It's very expensive. People don't understand how expensive it is to run restaurants. Talent is always a challenge. That's why this business is, the failure rate.
You got to be passionate about it.
Yeah, absolutely. You're not in it. If you're not passionate, you're done.
You're not in it for the money.
You're not. You can make that money anywhere. To deal with the headaches that come to this, it has to be driven by passion.
Yeah. Do you guys? You something just a light bulb just hit me, or something just hit me. Do you feel that technology, AI, things like that are going to affect the hospitality business in a positive way, in a negative way?
Absolutely.
And are any of you in the forefront of that, or deal with that internally, and how are you leveraging it?
So people, we were just talking about how expensive it is here, right? How expensive food and beverage is in this town, and it's creeping everywhere. Mm-hmm. That is driven by wages, okay? When the minimum wage went up to all the server staff, now we're paying rack rate, and there's no tip credit. We have to find that money somewhere, and it's going to come through efficiencies, okay? It's going to come through technology and efficiencies. Right now, okay, when we first started looking at robotics, okay, there's a Grillman robotic that is making huge headwinds on saving labor for grill. What they right now, they're very focused on just certain products, burgers, steaks. It has to be cut a certain way. Once you get AI involved, it is going to be a game changer. Right now, we spend about $160,000 on a grill position for any restaurant. You take both shifts, the average grillman's salary, whatever. It's going to be about $180,000. Robotics, to get that machine to do it, it's already about the same price. What it doesn't have the AI to understand what they're cooking, the temperatures needed, and how to facilitate that. That's coming. And when that comes, it's a game changer, okay? Then you will see a lot more efficiencies in the restaurant business and the hospitality business. our industry is notorious for lagging behind adoption of technology and efficiencies, and you're going to see this because we now are forced to. Labor wages are too high. We need to deal with this, or we're going out of business, and I think that's the path forward.
And I think you're seeing that with all the closures.
Yep, absolutely.
Is there any
But
other?
but the flip side to that is where you're talking about the front of house.
Yeah.
And I think going off of what you just said a few minutes ago about being hospitable and the hospitality side of it is that I think that needs to be even more intense. You know, where we're doing so much more for the guests to make them feel like they're special. I believe that's what will set us apart.
And I believe I believe the wages that are spent in the hospitality business and restaurant business is going to flip, meaning the dollars that are the lion's share of the dollars spent is going to be on front of the house and the people managing the technology in the back, okay? Because listen, people want to go out for an experience. They want to go out for a conversation. They want to be taken care of. They don't, I don't believe the interaction with the guest is going to go away. That's just not, on certain venues, right? On certain quick service, things like that, fast food, that would adapt way faster. But what I see is there's two dynamic experiences happening. There's going to be, people are going to get fed, okay? And they're going to go to restaurants that can feed them. And there's going to be people who want experiences, okay? And we are in the experiential world, okay? They want, when they're eating, they can get it delivered at home. They can go to quick service. They can go to that kind of thing, and it's going to be very functional, okay? Experience is going to come, and that's where they're going to show off their content. That's where they're going to film. That's where they're going to tell everybody this is where I went, and that's why we need to make the experience really at the highest level, in my mind.
Yeah, that's for sure. I agree with both of you. The robotics is definitely something that I wasn't even thinking of. So I'm glad you brought that up. And in front of house wise, 100%. That's where the investment is going to come with human and possibly other technologies that we'll see develop. I think I'm a geek when it comes to AI, so I had to ask that. Listen, you guys are obviously pros. You've been doing this for a very long time, longer than I have. You must have had some mentors or people that helped you along the way. Anybody that comes to mind that you want to talk about that kind of either showed you the ropes, paved the way, or helped you along?
There've been a few people that have sort of had a real impact for me. Even if I wasn't with them all the time, but a guy like Belhaj, who had the Standard brand that he created. When he had the Mercer Hotel, Chateau Marmont, and then he opened the first Standard in LA, an old friend of mine was his basic right hand, and they came to Miami. It's when Rumi was open. It was pretty early on at that moment, and I got to spend time with him, and then he bought what was the Lido Spa. So at that moment, for about 10 years, I spent a lot of time with him. And yeah, because so I did the deal for the Lido Spa, became the Standard. So I helped, I basically brokered the deal. But then he bought the Raleigh also. So that's when Tommy and I and Ingrid got together.
Did the parties on Sundays.
The beach part, yes. And
those are some great parties, by the way.
That was, yeah, it was a special
I had
moment.
a great time over there.
That was a special time in Miami Beach. I mean, it's hard
so
to.
Fun.
The three of you guys getting together was awesome. I remember Thai Entertainment. That was great.
But Andre was definitely one of the guys. Just watching him with design and experience and like the way his brain worked. But even also, and he became my partner. But even like Tommy in a way.
Yeah.
Because he's 17 years older than I am.
Tommy's phenomenal.
And there's a magic about Tommy Pooch.
Oh yeah, for sure.
There really is. And watching him right when we first sort of became closer, and that was fun. He was so. I mean, there were a few others. The Delano. We're talking about Brian McNally, who was the owner of that restaurant. I got to spend a bunch of time with him and a few other people at that moment, and those were sort of for me people that I looked up to. But even going far as back as Gary James. You know.
I love Gary.
You know, I mean,
I love
now
Gary.
he's like a big crazy hippie, and
Yeah,
like, you know, he's
he is.
doing,
He
ayahuasca or whatever he's doing. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
No, but that guy, like, when I was in high school, he had the spot, and it was him and Mickey Rourke, and I think Bobby was part of that too, right?
I think so. I was young.
Yeah. Well, maybe not. I think Bobby was part of that. But either way, or Louis. What was Louis?
Louis Canales?
Yeah, Louis Canales. You know, but really, it was Gary James, and I looked at that guy as like a god. Literally, he was. First of all, he was also a model.
Yeah.
You know, he was this handsome, like picturesque, like part Indian, and. You know, he had every girl in the world loved him, and like so, and he let me into the spot when I was in high school. So I was like, this is the greatest guy ever. He's like, just bring some girls. I was like, okay, it was the best. You know, it was a fun moment.
Promoter career.
It was a fun moment. What was that?
I said it launched your promoter career.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go. He's like,
Yeah.
No, that was definitely a special time. Tim, for you, there must have been.
Yeah, of course. You know, I would say from the restaurant business side, I would say my Vic Brandstetter, who was the director of operations for Houston's, that guy, I was just always enamored by his total commitment to excellence. And he did not waver. He did not tilt. He did not even toe the line. He drove a standard that I've never seen anybody else drive a standard, especially across an organization at the time had 53 restaurants, right?
53?
When you know, we'd opened a bunch, but, you know, and that guy, you know, growing is the toughest part, right? Growing and consistency, those two don't go hand in hand. So that showed me that. And I guess the biggest mentor I have, and he's still my mentor to this day, and he really taught me a lot about business, is a guy named Steve Halmos. He's still our biggest partner. He actually was the owner of all that land where the wharf is. You know, he bought all that land. He assembled it for Riverfront and whatnot. But I was very fortunate to get involved with him very early on, and he, you know, the restaurant business is driven by a lot of emotion, right? As operators, you know, you're getting excited about what the possibility might be, and sometimes that blinds you on the reality of what could be, right? So he always he taught me to take the emotion out of the business decision the best you can, and that's
I
helped
love
me a lot.
that.
Yeah,
I love that.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. You guys, is there a particular process that you guys go through when selecting venues? Because you obviously have some pretty great ones.
Well, yeah, there's a big process. I mean, I don't know if it's like A, B, C, D. I think there's a lot of unpacking that we do about sites, right? And we really need to, when we look at a site, it's important for us to understand the market it's in and who we're going to be marketing to, and if our concept is going to align with what they want. I mean, that's really the bones of it. And I think, you know, and that's different. Like, we're doing a deal in Atlanta. Alan has spent a tremendous amount of time in Atlanta understanding the market, understanding who our consumer is, who are we targeting in that area of you know, so there's a lot that goes into that. And a lot of people don't do that work, and then that's why they end up, wow, I can't believe this didn't work. You know.
But also going back to the emotional the comment that, you know, I think that plays into a part here also, because we've looked at, you know, 30 deals in Miami, let's just say, hypothetically, whatever the number is, and, you know, obviously we only have 2. So now there's more coming that we have signed and that are going to happen. But, you know, for me, being from Miami, I'm like, yes, let's do this. You know, it's the emotions. I'm like, and I also want more, and I want to drive, and like, you know, and then we take a step back and we're like, okay, does this make the most sense? Is it in the right location? You know, we do our sort of systematic due diligence and not emotional, you know, and, you know.
It's hard not to be emotional,
It's also
right?
good that I have an older brother.
Yeah.
Is that how this is? Is that how?
Yeah, kind of. Well, yes and no. I mean,
I also like.
Alan's very excited, right? You know,
I'm always excited.
Yeah, and I
You need
have to
that,
temper
right?
that. Yeah, absolutely. And I love that. I want that. But it's always easier to temper somebody than to try to get them excited, right? So Alan is the guy who you don't ever have to try to get him excited. If he sees something, he gets excited about it, you know. But I think that, listen, we've all had failures, okay? There is no success without failures. But when you open a restaurant or a bar or club and it's not going well, okay, that is a living hell because you're trying to do everything, and it's just, and so again, I think if we take that pain and apply it to the front end on understanding where we want to go, chances are you're not going to have the pain on the back end.
Man, you just opened my eyes. Looking back, there are some of these places that I know I've opened, and I know this has happened. It must have happened to you guys because you just mentioned it. That you're all in, you're really excited, and you're seeing everybody putting on the front, but at the end, on the back end, you're losing money, and you could go a year, 2 years, bleeding. And you're like, oh, no, everything's great, man. And you're still putting out product and you're still putting it out. And you're just like, dude, when is this going to end?
And then what a real challenge is now, because you have multiple venues, right? And now all your other kids are doing great, but you're just focused on this sick child. And you have your team focused on the sick child. And the demands on the other businesses that could go awry very quickly, right? So
yeah.
So we really want to we don't want to be in a place in a year that all we're doing is focused on this to try to get this thing to work.
Yeah,
that's the goal.
You just mentioned child, and how do you balance your personal life, and is there a balance between personal life and your professional life?
Well, I don't have kids, so that's one way that's pretty easy.
And I'm divorced, so don't ask me. I will say this, that everybody talks about work-life balance and things like that. I think that's a fallacy. I do. I'm sorry, and I'm going to probably get a lot of people like, I think if you're all in on wanting to be successful on something, maybe that's your family, maybe that's your spouse, maybe that's your business, I don't think balance is a good thing, okay, to drive outcomes, to drive desirable outcomes. And there's going to be collateral damage. If you're focused 100 hours on your business, your family's not going to be happy about that. And if you're focused 100 hours on your family, your business isn't going to be happy about that. So I think you need to pick a road, and hopefully you pick a spouse that understands that and gives you the support to do that.
Yeah, you just got to be full throttle on whatever it is you choose.
I believe that.
Yeah, no, 100%. You just go full, you just don't sleep. Just full throttle on both.
Yep.
There you go. Listen, you guys obviously have a lot of experience. Oh, wait, before we go into that, I have another one for you. We're in Giselle. This place is beautiful. Talk to me about Giselle. How'd you end up here?
I'll let Alan take it, but I want to start this. Okay?
And who is Giselle?
This is crazy.
Like, who's Giselle?
Well, he'll go.
So literally, I mean, the ink is not even dried on our partnership agreement, okay? And now, remember, I signed a deal about a year in Miami, and we haven't even looked at anything yet because I didn't have the team together. So we just signed the agreement, and then he calls me. He's like, Tim, can you be in Miami tomorrow at like 11 a.m.? I'm like, yeah, what's going on? He goes, I have a deal for us. And I go, oh boy, well, okay, well, give me a little something. He goes, we're going to be meeting at 11. I'm like, oh. 11 o'clock a.m. at 11 is not always a good thing, right? So
or maybe it is.
Yeah. So this turned out to be a great thing, but I'll let Alan take it from there.
So I run into Michael Simpkins. I grew up, his older brother was my best friend growing up, and I hadn't seen him in a few years. And we see each other, and what are you doing now? And he's like, I saw you were traveling. I heard about, and I was like, well, funny enough, I just partnered up with Tim Petrillo, and we're gonna do a cocktail bar in Brickell. I'm super excited. It's gonna open in like 6 months, and he's like, well, we have this space at on the roof of 11 that we've been meeting with groups. He's like, you should come see it. And I was like, okay, I'll go. And he goes, but you'd have to come soon. So they had about 3 groups that they had, they had spoken to probably 20 different people, and so they had 3 groups that essentially were trying to get the space and the deal. And the next day we come here, and we both walked this property, which I had never been upstairs here. In fact, actually, the real truth is I had only been to 11 once before that, the grand opening party, and then I'd never gone back, and we walked out of there called Michael and said, we really like this, and we would like to, get a little stab at trying to get this deal. And he said, when can you have a concept to us? And we said, 2 weeks, 10 days, 2 weeks. You know, he's like, okay, 2 weeks, send us something. We'll wait. I was like, okay, and that was it. And so two things. One is that simultaneously, Tim and the group had worked with a designer out of South Africa already. His name's Tristan.
And he was designing something for us at
And
the time.
he was doing something for them in Fort Lauderdale. And then I went back to my desk again and, you know, do what I do. I rolled up a little, my process. And the real story is that after a couple of hours sitting at my desk, I had a dream. I heard a voice, and it was a Spanish dancer that in my mind, she was dancing for a guy. This was downstairs at 11, and she whispered into his ear, "Papi, take me to Giselle tomorrow night." And I was like, what? And I wrote Giselle down. And that was sort of the start of how it basically happened. I looked at, like, I start typically with like a name and a logo and a concept and like just to be inspired. And I took the 11 logo and I wrote that down. And 11, they have the two ones that are as the L's. So I flipped that and I did the same thing with Giselle. When I Googled Giselle, like the Brazilian, you know, supermodel, you know, came up, and I had no connection to her or anything, but it sort of became this idea that you were seeing this space and experience through her eyes. And it was like, even like the furniture and the design was inspired by her travels. But to just, and I'll let you take over 1 second, but Tristan, the designer, after we had spoken to him, he essentially came up with this.
Yeah.
We had tweaks and we made changes a little bit here and there, but this was in his brain and he knocked it out of the park. But you know,
and what I liked about the concept was it could live above 11 because it could be sexy enough to be there, but still serious enough about a restaurant. And that's kind of how I like the whole concept, how it kind of fit hand in glove with who we're, you know, you have to be conscious of who you're living with and who you're on top of too, right? So we needed this concept to be a party, to be a serious restaurant, and to be sexy. And that's a tough thing to pull off.
Yeah, it's not easy.
And I think it works well.
yeah.
That's amazing. How many days a week are you open up here?
Wednesday through Sunday, closed Monday and Tuesday. Yeah.
Nice. Do you find it difficult to close 2 days a week in general for your restaurants, or are you like a 7 day a week kind of?
So I was a 7 day a week guy, and now we're seeing, you know, this industry is changed dramatically from the employee and what the employee expects, right? So back when we were young, you worked 100 hours a week, and that was a thing, you know. And if you got 1 day off, you're happy as a manager, right? That world is gone, right? So what 2 shifts allows you to do is 2 shifts closed, you're able to not have to hire additional management. You're really looking at the revenue that you drive on the off days. If you get to break even on those off days, that's a good thing. Normally, if you run the analysis, you're losing money on those 2 days. So if you look at through that lens, you're like, hey, this makes a lot of sense. And the byproduct of that is your team loves it. They know that you're closed on those 2 days. They're not going to get called in on those 2 days. They know they can schedule. They may have to stop in for a moment, but we're closed, you know. And I think for their psyche, it's a very positive thing.
You guys obviously have a wealth of information. Not only do you work hard, but you also play hard too. So I have a
me?
Yeah. Oh, I've seen
my poor wife.
I've seen you guys have some fun.
I
out there.
leave for Medellin at 3 o'clock today.
No, you
do?
don't.
Yes, I do.
I didn't
Oh
even
my
know
God.
this, and I wasn't invited for the record.
So I guess my question is, when you're not working, which you work all the time, what are your favorite? Alan, what's your top three places to have a drink?
Good question. I go to all kinds of places, to be completely honest with you, from high end to as lowbrow as you can go. Because Rosa Sky is in Brickell, I once in a blue late night moon, I go over to Better Days. You know, I sneak in. It's a little dark. No one, you know, I hide on the corner. I'm at the bar. So I've had a little bit of trouble there. I also, you know, it's not a full bar, but I go to Michael's Genuine a lot. for me, it's Michael is one of the best, and with what he does. Yeah, and there's a great spot, and they have the most incredible chicken fingers and wings. It's close to my house. It's really sweet and innocent. It's called Gold Rush, and I go there once in a while.
Oh, yeah. So,
I had you confused for a second, didn't I? You were like, wait a minute, Gold Rush. Oh my God. So no, actually, but yeah, I up by where I live, Biscayne. There was a motel called the New Yorker. It's still there, but they had a bar in the back that I would go to and during COVID, it like sort of exploded in that area right on Biscayne. But what I'm getting at is the guy that ran that place. He just opened. It's been open about a year at the Music Lovers, or I forget. I don't even know the name, but it's right across from Gold Rush, and it's in the hotel. Bad Radio? Yeah, and Mad Radio. Thank you, Mad Radio. And I go there once in a while, late night, like quiet. It's chill. It's on the canal, and it's great. And I can walk home if I wanted to. So those are my places, but I go all over.
No, you're a social butterfly.
No, he's out.
He's out.
He
I love it.
me.
I love it. I love it.
No, yeah.
It's in my
And
blood.
It's in your blood.
Yeah.
And what's incredible though, I'll shoot him a text early. I'm an early riser, right? So I'll shoot him a text, and a lot of times I don't know if it's Alan's coming in or is he waking up.
Oh my
It's
God.
so fun.
I got to ask the restaurateur. There's got to be some places that you love to eat that aren't yours, because you own a lot of places. But what are your top 3 places to eat?
If I'm first off, I think Miami food scene is probably one of the best in the country right now, and it's only getting better. You're seeing such top talent come into this market, so I haven't even gotten around. What I'll do is, or we'll do is, we'll jump in a car and just kind of hit a bunch of places in the night just to kind of see what they're doing and whatnot. But like, if I'm going out to dinner up in Lauderdale where I live, I would say I love Italian, so either Runway or Cafe Moderano. I probably go there the most. I like sitting at the bar there, and it's always a great scene. It's great food. For drinks, there's actually that Swizzle just opened up. Obviously I always go to the Wharf. I mean, because I have spots over there too, so I always pop in there. And I think Big City on Los Olas, that late night Big City has been for years the industry spot, right? So you can walk in there at midnight and run into a bunch of people that you haven't seen in a while. So that's always a good local kind of spot up there.
Those are some great ones. I got one more for you guys. I haven't really asked this to anybody, but I'm starting to talk a little bit about hotels lately. But if you had to pick a staycation place in South Florida, hotel that's a go-to that you would love to be a guest in, where are you picking?
Well, I'll say, I mean, I have gone up to Palm Beach and West Palm Beach over the last 3 months, 6 months, a number of times. One, I really like the market for us potentially to open something up there.
Me too, by the way.
All right, well, maybe there's a conversation to be had.
You'll see that soon.
Good. But the Breakers up there is it's so incredible. It's so beautiful. The bar, it's just, Barkley and I, my wife and I were up there. I forget what day it was, but it was a big brunch Sunday afternoon, and it was so special and so incredible.
The detail that they pay, it's incredible. That's funny you said, because I was going to say the same thing. In South Florida, I don't think there's a more magnificent property. Okay, I book the first weekend of December every year up there because they just put all their Christmas stuff on. It's just a kind of a cool way to get in the holiday spirit before, Christmas for us is chaos, right?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden we go through one of the busiest times, and then it's Christmas. So I try to go the first weekend up there because they just put up all the decoration. The level of detail and commitment to service is just, it's spectacular. So I would say that for North and South, I think that there's a lot of great properties down here. I mean, if I'm going to be on the beach, I love the One Hotel. I think it's a great. It's a great.
Smells
location.
great.
It does smell great.
Smells great.
And I'll tell you, I went recently to the roof.
The roof, yeah.
Yeah.
Water, yeah.
I mean, it's really
it's
quite
nice.
special
It
up
is.
there.
They
still have the
it's
pool up
gotten
there,
better
right?
and better over the years.
That's what I like about that hotel.
Yeah.
I agree with you. It keeps improving, right? And I think that those are my go-tos down here.
Guys, I've had such a great time talking
Yeah,
smack
this
with
is
both
so
of you
fun.
guys.
We
was
could keep
enjoyable.
going.
Is
and
there
I keep
anything
going.
that we didn't cover that we need to give a shout out or do? I mean, I'm sure there's.
What
there's a
about
lot
you?
we-
How did you get into this business? I
Me, hospitality wise, well, my first job, I was a busboy.
Yep.
My high school soccer coach. My entire high school summers, I worked in construction. So my uncle had a construction company, and I was a big kid. At 7 years, just in third grade, I weighed 130 pounds. All right, in third grade. And in seventh grade, I was dunking a basketball. I've been this size since seventh grade. It just stopped in seventh grade, and then I just got bigger. So I was always like carrying bricks and doing demo and digging ditches. And then I got into hospitality because I went to work for my soccer coach, Hart Bauer, at the Grand Palms golf course. They had a restaurant inside the golf course, which is off of I-75 in Miramar. Anyways, did hospitality there. Then I threw a party. I saved a little money. I had a girlfriend at the time. I went to high school and I went to like a club. I think it was Rebar. It was either, it was called Club Q. I went to Rebar after, but Club Q, and it was on Collins and 6th. And I had to pay $10 to get in, and I had a girlfriend with me. I paid $10 for her to get in, and I had like $5 left over for like a drink. Like I didn't have any money. I was 17, 18 years old. I'm like, okay, but a promoter through this party, he got to keep $10 from everybody in here. I'm like, I could do that. And that's kind of like, and then started organizing events. I started throwing parties. I made some really good money, and then I really enjoyed seeing people happy. That was my calling. Like I throw these parties and seeing everybody having a good time. It was like, that made me feel great. It was fun. And I remember my girlfriend at the time, I'm like, dude, I'm getting into the club business. And she's like, ugh. And I'm like, it didn't work out.
Yeah.
So
I got to tell you, compliments to you, because if there was a disruptor in the nightlife industry, it was the Wharf. I remember when the Wharf came in, what you did was genius. Okay.
Thank you.
You took over a area that was not well known. You programmed it geniusly. You subbed out all the food to where they start paying you money to be there because you're driving such a crowd. I just thought it was, I was in awe. I'm like, this is amazing.
Thank you. I get
agreed.
goosebumps, and
I
especially
concur.
hearing it from you.
Yeah.
Listen, I think the Wharf was born out because for 17 years, I was a co-founder of Space. I was across the street here. 17 years of after hours really weighs down on you, and club nights. And at one point, I had 9 club parties a week in 7 days, right? And it was. It buries you. It buries you. And after we sold and my contract ran out, I needed a reset. I was going through some personal stuff. And so my summer of New Year's Eve of 2016 to going to be 2017 was my last day, New Year's Eve. And it was like 6 months of trying to find myself. And then I got linked up with my partner, Alex Montecone, and it was like, okay, I want to create something. We found that he had a piece of land. We did the deal, and it was born basically of like, okay, I'm tired of velvet ropes. I'm tired of being told how much I need to spend. I want something that my friends would want to go to, because my old friends aren't coming to the clubs anymore. They're just not. But people still want to go out and have a drink. But sometimes they want to have a party, and sometimes they don't, and sometimes they want to people watch. And it sort of just kind of organically happened. And did 1 million people through the doors in the first 13 months in Miami, and that changed my life. And then when we did Fort Lauderdale, I got to tell you, the city of Fort Lauderdale is phenomenal. The people that work there, the neighbors. I remember coming to see you before I opened. And I one of the things I said to you is like, I'll never, like, I'm coming to see you out of respect, because I'm not going to come and poach your staff. If somebody applies, they apply. But I'm not going to poach. I'll call you. And you were I'm like, look, we might be a disruptor at first, but I think it's going to help the area.
I felt I was excited for you to get there because I knew I've been to the wharf several times down in Miami, so I knew what was coming, and our community needed it. And it's always we had Rooftop there, right? And when you're by yourself, you're on an island, okay? And I knew you coming, we would create great synergy, which is proven. I mean, candidly, you drove revenue to us. Our sales increased when we obviously we took a ding in the beginning, but
then it just
absolutely
you'll see it. It settles in.
It does.
It settles in. And it just becomes a stop.
And then it becomes okay. Let's go down there because I know I can go to a bunch of
drink
places.
here, a drink there. That's what made South Beach so incredible.
And
for
that
so
I
many
remember
years,
bouncing when we had space. I would bounce in and out. We would open up because we'd open up at 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock. And at 1 a.m, I'd leave space and I'd bounce in and out of every single party in Miami Beach. In and out of
Come over
Crowbar,
after, come over
Chaos,
after.
Crowbar. I mean, just Level. Like I would go in and out of all the mega clubs and out of the small bars on 6th Street. And I would talk to I'd buy a drink at every bar, tip all the bartenders, invite them all to space. And I would do that, bounce in and out of like 10 places a night, have 17 shots, and then end up back over here at stop at San Loco Taco to get like
or La Sandwichery.
or La Sandwichery, just to dive in,
San Loco was my tenant in Broward.
No,
yeah,
Really?
he was next to Tarpon
It
Bend.
was great, man.
Soft
yeah.
hard tacos.
Chuck.
Yes,
It was the
dude.
first time I ever
No, they
had
had
that.
the big
It was
burrito
so
grande.
good.
It was
Yep.
amazing.
Yep. Wow.
And
So
then
funny.
and then everybody I would invite would come see us over here. Anyways, after 17 years of that, it wears down on you, and that's how I got into it, and it's changed my life forever, and I'm eternally grateful. And now the reason for the podcast is really just to, I think, helping each other. I think us talking about your places, we get talked about my places. I get to show this to our network. You guys will hopefully share it and show it
for
to
sure,
yours,
of course, yeah.
and it helps everybody.
Yeah, it
and I love what you guys are doing. I have tremendous respect for you and you.
Thank you.
And it's great. I love talking shit with my friends.
Well, I
So-
appreciate you inviting us to be on this. It was a lot of fun.
No, I know, and I appreciate you guys.
We gotta
guys
do it
coming
again.
on.
Yeah, for
I'm,
sure.
I'm down to do it again. I know I need to go to Rosa Sky this weekend now that
And
that I've been
you're
called
guilted
out.
into it.
Now that I've been called out, and that's it, guys. Thank you for tuning
Yes,
in,
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
and thank
So
you guys.
fun.
We'll do this again soon.
Thank
All right,
you.
thanks, Emmy.